Well, good morning, friends. Richard Clinton here for another Fire Pit conversation. And I pray you all have had a wonderful week as we sit here another brisk Friday morning here in Georgia. But the rain passed, the clouds have passed, and we have a beautiful sunrise ahead of us here in Georgia. And I'm just looking forward to it. So I'm sitting out here just enjoying. It's a cool 45, 46 degrees. Got the coffee going, and I'm just enjoying the wonderful beauty out here. And got a crow cawing, got the birds, all the other birds singing, and it's just. I woke up this morning, stepped outside right at dawn, and it was just a wonderful just thing to step into, and just did my heart so much good this morning. And that's good coffee. So So I pray everyone again is doing well, and I'm just here again this week as uh, we come to another Friday, and I know there's probably a lot going on, a lot of movement, a lot of interesting things happening in the state and this country. Still a lot of uncertainty, of course, but you know what? I'm going to set all that aside. I'm not worried about the uncertainty. I'm not worried about the fear. I'm not worried about anything else that's going on right now. I'm just really just chimed into um, this life that's ahead with God, and what that's looking like, and just the way God continues to show up in my life in some big ways, and I pray the same over you, and as we learn each day to learn to trust Him more and more, continue to walk in His goodness and His presence each day. It's just a wonderful thing, and it's wild to see kind of the range of emotions that happen, because last week it was one of those weeks where I was all in my head. I really had a tough time really kind of processing. A lot of just frustrations we're going through, a lot of uncertainties, and perhaps and I'll share more of that and my for my narrative as we go along. But it's just it's interesting time, and kind of the way God's taken us, the conversations He's teed up in my life this week with some good friends and some allies, and it's just been really good for my heart. And I just want to really offer some encouragement again this week um, of being able to really continue each day, of stepping into each day, of really stepping into God's goodness and His presence. And I had this wonderful group of brothers that I get to do life with, some that are here locally and some that are states away, but still love them dearly, and get to connect with them and have conversations with them. And I had a conversation on on Monday, um, with some brothers on what we call our Holy Smoke, one of our Holy Smokes gatherings, and just a group of men. We get together, maybe enjoy some cigars, and just and talk life. And there's something about you may whether you enjoy cigars or not. I mean, I'm just going to say there's something about that just caught about the time in that enables you to slow down. You slow down, and really, because it's meant to enjoy in fellowship. And so there was some, again, there was something about that conversation with this week where we talked about just kind of the creative things that God is doing in our lives, or rather the creativeness that God has really cultivated in each one of us, and men that are doing different things, whether it's working with wood in different things, or just a number of different projects they may be doing around their yard and their homes, and or stuff they may be writing and working on. And it was kind of wild how that day kind of progressed, because a project I've been working on, and it's been a slow process. The idea first came to me late last summer. I've been writing for a number of years. I have a blog site that I've been writing to. I haven't written much in the last many months, just because this idea actually came forward, so I haven't really posted anything. But it's coming together in what perhaps maybe a book, something my wife Amber has been encouraging me to do for quite some time. And so it's kind of wild how, I woke up Monday morning and just this inspiration of something just hit me, and I just jumped into it, started writing again. And I hadn't really done much in the project in a while, but just in a matter of hours knocked out another chapter of just it was just this thing that God was using, kind of the narrative that's happened in my life over the last 6-7 months, of really unpacking kind of what that's looked like, and being yanked off this the comfortable road, if you will, onto the narrow road, and more firmly on the narrow road, in a way that I didn't expect. So well, maybe I'll share more of that later as well. But it's interesting that as we talked about the creativeness and talked about what kind of how God's using us and how important it is to really step into the creative side, no matter what that is. You know, it's wild when we release that and allow God to kind of cultivate that and work that in us, of what that what can happen with that, and how He continues to make use of that in our lives, and when we really bring Him to the center of it and allow Him to really work with us in that. And because it was one of the things, like when I used to write a while back, it'd be me. It's me trying to make it happen or force it happen, and it really wasn't materializing. But when I started releasing it to God, the stuff that was being churned out was unbelievable, and not unbelievable from it's just this magnificent thing, but it was just wild how it all just began to start flowing in a way I didn't expect. Just these thoughts were coming to my mind, and I was just processing, just how God was continuing to work with me on a day-to-day basis. And it was a wild thing when I just started to release it. And when I started this project, this writing project, late last year, I dove into it head on. I was like, yes, this is great. It's really going to start coming together. And but then I fell into kind of this trap of, again, trying to make it happen, trying to force it to happen. When I was trying to force it to happen, it was like, nope, that's not the way it's going to go. You've got to bring me back into the center of it. You've got to let me do this with you. Let me help write this, cultivate this with you. And that's what I kept feeling God start saying. So every time I sat there trying to force it to happen, even talked with the publisher about it, and they're like, hey, yeah, how quickly can you get it out? I was like, oh yeah, I bet you I can get this out within a few months. It's just I felt the ideas, but God was like, no, it's not time. It's kind of wild how He does that. And I've said this on a previous video of the old saying that if you want to make God laugh, tell Him your plans, right? And that's just kind of what He's done in that. And it's been good, because it's forced me to kind of slow down and just allow Him to just come into the center of that process with me, and not sit here trying to force it to happen. And I think that's the trap we all kind of run into. It's good and warm. The trap we kind of all run into each week in our day-to-day, right? Of sitting there trying to make life work on our own, of sitting there trying to figure things out, of no matter what it could be, our careers, it could be trying to make things happen in our home life, and friendships, and so forth. And it's all a matter of really trying. It's something that I think we all kind of fall into, right? I'm one of those guys that I can be a control freak, depending on what I'm working on, because I want to see things done. I want to see things progress and completed the way I think they should go. And oftentimes God has to kind of pull me back a little bit and beat me over the head and just say, hey, no, that's not the way it works. I remember when we did our first Anvil men's boot camp. Actually, we just finished it 3 years ago. Yesterday, we finished our first Anvil men's boot camp, and we stepped into that, and I had a whole plan, had the whole curriculum ready to go, and I knew what I was doing, and we had the team in place with my brothers Butch and Steve and Greg. We're like, we're going to charge ahead, we're going to do it. And God showed up the very first night and just and said, nope, that's not, this is about you, right? You've got to bring me into this. Remember, this is about me. So he just kept showing up. In the first morning, we were getting ready and getting breakfast ready. Guys were going to cook some pancakes, and so one of us had brought a electric skillet to cook the pancakes on, and it tripped the power in the kitchen, and I was like, dang it. Okay, so that kind of slowed down the breakfast cooking, and then so we found another outlet. We had set up a table in the back of our the living room area of these barracks we were using, and which also is the room where all our sessions were, all our equipment was set up to run through videos and all that stuff. So we tried setting the skillet out there to do the cooking, and it trips the power in the room. And I was like, I was getting frustrated, and we go to try to find the breaker box, and it's in a locked room. And we're in a state park. It's early on a Friday morning. They haven't opened their offices yet. So I'm like, what are we supposed to do? We've got a schedule to keep. We've got a rafting trip coming up in just a couple hours, so I've got to get this session done before we can go on the rafting trip and all of that. And so I'm freaking out. And so me and one of the men that was there, my buddy Jeff, he rode with me. We went to go find the ranger's house and go see if someone can come and get the power back on as quickly as possible. And I remember driving, we got to the ranger's house, and I'm sitting there, and Jeff just looks at me and said, Richard, you need to stay in the truck. You stay here, let me go talk to them, I'll get them to come out. And because he knew I was just, he could see it all over my face. I'm trying to play it calm, but he knew I was kind of, I was kind of panicking and freaking on the inside. But it was it was wild, because I was able to stop in that moment, and was so thankful. Such a huge rescue for Jeff to do that for me, because it forced me to kind of just breathe and stop for a minute, and I could just sense God just saying, hey, just again, invite me back in. Did I not teach you the first night? Invite me into this. And so it was just this moment of complete surrender, remembering and really knowing that, it can't happen without God as a part of it. And it reminds me always of what John Eldredge wrote in Wild at Heart, of that the world is rigged in a way that it does not work apart from God. Yet we spend so much of our lives, so much of our time trying to make that happen, right? And that was kind of what part of what kind of started turning to me this week, just kind of processing through that, of how the way God kind of has shown up in a lot of ways for me, and of reminding me that I'm not in control of everything, that I have to be able to release control and invite him into it, that he wants to be a part of what's going on. And even now in your day-to-day lives, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing, God wants to be a part of the day-to-day with you. And I was taken back to this quote, and this is by far one of my favorite quotes. Even before I read the book, there's a book by Mike Yaconelli. He was a youth minister and led a youth minister movement before he died back in, I think, of 2003 in a car accident. And but he wrote a book called Dangerous Wonder. It was all about finding our childlike faith with God. And I didn't read that book until last summer. Was the first time I actually read it, but there was a quote from that has stood out for me for these last many years, that has really become a theme of what I want my life with God to look like. And I'm going to read the quote here, and it says that I want a lifetime of holy moments. Every day I want to be in dangerous proximity to Jesus. I long for a life that explodes with meaning and is filled with adventure, wonder, risk, and danger. I long for a faith that is gloriously treacherous. I want to be with Jesus, not knowing whether to cry or laugh. So friends, there was something about that was so, that resonated with me in such a huge way, in the way God has continued to remind me of choosing this narrow road, this continued walk with Him, of not trying to make life work on my own. And I think that's a lesson for all of us, and something for each one of us to remember, right? And that we're each meant to really continue to pursue this life with God, pursue more with God. He wants to offer more. He's got more for each one of us. But in order to do that requires a willingness, a purposefulness, an intentionalness to just release ourselves and release it all to Him, and allow Him to come into the center of it, and allow Him to lead us and guide us and train us. Because I'll tell you, God, He keeps bringing me back to the moment of surrender for me, back in 2015, when He just simply asked me, would I follow and trust Him? And being willing to say yes to that first time was just this moment of just absolute transformation for me. And I was reminded again in that same book. I'm going to read one more quote from that book, from Dangerous Wonder, and that stood out. And this is kind of what churned kind of this whole project, because it started making me really think about all this, of really what it looked like to really choose daily, the daily choices and the 1,000 choices we have to make in our life with God. But it says, remember when you said yes to Jesus the first time. You didn't know all the rules, but you knew Jesus. Following, it turns out, is not a one-time spectacular act of faith, but a one day at a time, ordinary, unspectacular following. A daily act of fearlessness that takes us through the most frightening and rugged terrain to a place of peace and joy and abandon. And it's reminding me that each day we have to really choose how we're gonna say yes, how we're gonna continue to offer surrender our lives to this life with Jesus, and allow Him to really take a hold and lead us in the day to day. Again, taking me back each time to trusting. And it's just a wild thing to see, because I've mentioned the series The Chosen. If you haven't seen it, again, please download it, go find it, and watch it. Just an amazing picture of Jesus and His personality and the way He interacted, kind of this realness of the way He is with the disciples and the people around Him. And those early the disciples, especially when they first started out, they're asking a lot of questions. Jesus is going one way, and they're like, no, Lord, shouldn't we go this way? And just a quote, something that He says in that film that just always stood out, and to me, and I think it's true, very true, and very much resonates with our life with Jesus in the day to day. And He says, if we're going to have a question and answer session, every time I do something that you're not used to, it's going to be a very annoying trip. And every time I hear that, I absolutely love that, because it's so true, right? Jesus is all about just taking us into more, and He's all in this life with Him, this narrow road that we walk on with Him. There's so many unknowns there. We don't know what's going to happen, where it's going to lead, how He's going to guide us. But it's all about simply being willing to allow the unknown, allow things we're not used to happen. And wow, He's been showing me that in so many ways. These last months, it's been so amazing to see, of just being able to and letting go and saying, okay, all right, Jesus said, I'll let you have the control here. I'll let you take this, and seeing Him kind of convey that to the disciples, to Andrew and them, was amazing and awesome. And I think that's not that we're annoying to Jesus, but again, it's a continued journey that we're on, and we have to, if we're willing to really trust him and we're really willing to follow him, we have to get used to different, get used to things not happening that we're used to. And I think that's the way he works. It's frontier. It's always frontier, the spiritual life, this life with Jesus is. So friends, I pray that just offered some encouragement to you, and just I love the way kind of God continues to work on my life week to week, and through this, and even in the toughest times and the toughest weeks, like I had last week, of being able to just he keeps infiltrating my hearts in a lot of ways. And so I encourage you, just continue to look to him each and every day. Allow Jesus just to infiltrate you in ways that you're not going to be used to, but in ways that's going to lead to a life with him that's just going to be completely unreal, anything like you've never imagined. So friends, I thank you again for joining me this week. I pray you have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you back here for our next Fire Pit conversation. Take care. God bless.